going, y'all? Welcome back to the chaos. I'm Ryan, and we're gonna be tackling a little project on my 2000 New Edge Mustang today. So I actually do already have like full exhaust on the car. So it's Mac, everything from long tube headers all the way to the catback. Well, I love it. It's kind of like, the best way to describe it is it's kind of like that gentleman's exhaust. So like it sounds good and it's got a nice rumble and everything to it, but at low RPM and just low idle and just cruising around, like it's just not loud enough for me. So it's the old man style, unfortunately. And after hearing Paul, he just got a Mustang Bullitt, and if you haven't checked out the video, I'll link that down below. But that car sounds rowdy. It's got cams and everything like that, kind of a similar setup to this car. So my car's got the Howards Rattler series cams in it, and you would never know it. Like at idle, it's just, you don't really hear that lope and everything. So we're gonna fix that today, hopefully. So my goal is I want little children to cower and neighbors to be pissed off as I drive by, alarms blaring as you drive through a parking garage, that kind of thing. That's what we're going for. And I think with the help of SLP and their LoudMouth system, I mean, this thing is just a straight through design. That's the call for all my people. But hopefully we're going to louden this thing up, because like I said, it sounds good. We just need max volume. So hopefully LoudMouth has us covered. But first things first, we need to get the car in the air and start getting the old Mac catback off the car. And I do have everything unboxed at this point, so go ahead and check out what all it comes with, but not much. Just a set of pipes, some tips, and some hangers. That's about it. Well, that was the easy part, getting the car in the air, but out here working solo today, just trying to be extra safe, because there's nobody around, so I don't want the car to follow me. But now that we got it up on jack stands, we'll take a look, actually see what we got as far as the new SLP exhaust goes, and then we can actually start unbolting the Mac. So I'm a little sad to see the Mac go, but knowing the end results and the loudness we're gonna get from the SLP makes me happy. I'm gonna go ahead and hit everything with some penetrating lube, let it start soak in, so that way hopefully everything is easier to break loose. I don't know if it matters where you start, but to me, I'm just gonna start back here at the back with just the tip, you know what I'm saying, and then work my way forward. So just gotta get this old Mac stuff out the way. Both driver's side and passenger side tips came off pretty easily, and just kind of looking at the difference between like the Mac and the SLP, it's interesting as far as like the size difference and just like the setup difference, because I'll show you here in a second, but like the Mac actual tips are a whole lot longer. Like they kind of like extend down into the car, so like the quote unquote like the pretty stuff that you actually like kind of see, like this all nice and polished, you can actually see it farther back on the Mac than you do the SLP. So we'll see what the difference is when we actually get it like fully installed, but just kind of compare the two. And it looks like the SLP actually comes with its own hangers, whereas the Mac, it gave you had to reuse like the factory stuff, and it gave you a little more adjustability potentially, it looks like. So let's check out the difference. Yeah, our SLP is a whole lot shorter. So like the Mac, the whole actual tip runs the length kind of up here to the hanger where it's a little bit hidden, but then the SLP, well, from one, it's got kind of like a beveled edge down here at the tip itself, so little style points for that one. But it also has like a built-in hanger, where you'll notice the Mac, it just reused like our factory stuff, so there was some adjustability with that one. So it's got like this screw up here, so you kind of like adjust the tip along the length of your hanger, where with this one being attached, we'll see how that one works. But so far, so good. So let's move on to underneath the car. So again, we're just gonna keep working our way from back towards the front of the motor. But we're gonna do the kind of over the axle portion, and there's 2 bolts for that, and then the exhaust hanger. So I'm gonna grab that off and then work our way towards our H-pipe. Our nuts were actually coming off way too easily, so it's just the hanger that's like holding the muffler on. That is a pain to get to, so haven't quite figured that one out. I'm gonna tackle loosening the other side, and I might, while it's actually still tight, try to get it off the hanger. I don't know how much flexibility there is for doing that, but I figure we can play around with it. Why not? Worst comes to worst, like we'll end up in the same situation we have here, where we just have everything unbolted, but we just have our actual muffler just hanging. This is our current predicament. So this is the end of our H-pipe right here. So everything, there's like a little section that is obviously unbolted and missing. So now we just have our muffler just kind of free dangling up here, unfortunately. And I was actually sitting here looking at it off camera, and I think I'm just gonna remove like the actual exhaust hanger itself and then fiddle with the rubber stuff off the car and out here in some space, because you can actually get to like the little metal tab bracket that holds those hangers on. So I'm just gonna pull that whole bad boy off. These 2 nuts you're looking at, that's all that's actually holding our rubber exhaust hangers on there. So I'm just going to take those off, and that hopefully should solve all our problems and stop wasting time and start, instead of working harder, work smarter. We did it! All those, and I'm sure all the 90s kids can relate, but all those years of Tetris practice have finally paid off. So if we were on a lift, this would be infinitely easier, but trying to finagle this big old chunky boy and this big old muffler just wants to keep hitting everything. So you gotta kind of wiggle it, because there's the crooked part goes over your axle, and then the front muffler part is getting caught up on the ground, and then you're hitting stuff with the over the axle part. You're just running into space issues. So you gotta twist it and turn it and do it just right to get it to slide out. But again, on a lift, you don't have these problems, but working on the ground, chaos style, you're gonna run into a little finagling to get it out of there. But now that that's off, that's one side down, now to the passenger side. Well, for an exhaust install video, we sure have spent a lot of time uninstalling things. So we have the full catback, the matte catback, uninstalled at this point. So I'll show you what it looks like, and then now the fun part is actually putting all of our new SLP stuff on. This probably looks a little chaotic, but trust me, I've got the new exhaust laid next to the old exhaust just so I could kind of see the setup and how it works. So this one is basically, what, 5 portions. So we got the part that connects to the H-pipe. We got our SLP quote-unquote muffler, just kind of more like a resonator. We have our over axle portion, then the beginning of the tailpipe, and then our actual exhaust tip. So that's the way it's laid out. There are 4 band clamps on each side. So we're just gonna work our way from the H-pipe back towards the bumper. I'm excited for a little more loud on this car, because that's what it was always missing. So like I said, the sound on the Mac exhaust was great, but I just needed that volume. That's the one thing it was missing. So, and I know you're probably wondering, like, why don't you have any before exhaust clips? Well, I got you, I haven't forgot. So I actually made an entire video. So when we did the full exhaust, and we actually did the cams all at the same time. So we dropped it off at Fastlane Motorsports, which is local to North Carolina. They're a huge Mustang shop, that's all they deal with. So they did, because they already had I put the catback on myself, but they did the long tubes, off-road H, and then the cams all at one time. So I've got plenty of exhaust clips on that video, so I'll make sure to link that down below so that way you can get a comparison. But let's go ahead and get the fun stuff, get the SLP on there. Hopefully some of that was actually visible to you all, but I've got everything from the H-pipe to the over the axle part done. So now we just have the tailpipe. I've left everything basically pretty much really loose, so that way we can do some adjustment and everything like that, but everything's on there. And honestly, the hardest part again was messing with those exhaust hangers. So outside of that, everything just slides into place and you tighten your clamps down. That's really it. So luckily it's easy, minus the exhaust hangers, and I ain't got no tricks for that one. So I took them off. I don't know if that might be easiest. That's what I deemed easiest for me. So that's the only tricky part, but let's keep tackling it. So now that we've got that underneath the car in place, or in front of the axle, let's go behind the axle and fit our tailpipe and everything. One side done, so the driver's side is all snug down, and I kind of went back and forth. So I kind of was tightening up towards the rear first, and then was tightening the front, and then the tailpipe, like the exhaust pipe back here that sticks out from your bumper, that was all out of whack. So then I went back, loosened the back, went back, made sure the front was all tightened down, and then kind of adjusted the tailpipe last. So it's just kind of a game of bouncing back and forth, just making sure everything's lined up and everything's tight. So like I said, one side down, let's knock out the others, and then I'm dying to hear how this thing sounds. I'm absolutely wiped. So I think we are done. I say I think because like you really ideally want to start it up, check for any exhaust leaks, and then you can call it a job well done. And then after, you know, a couple 100 miles, you want to go back through and just snug everything down, make sure everything's still tight. But I'm actually gonna pause here. One, I'm exhausted, I'm hungry. I still got to clean up the garage, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to catch back up with you all tomorrow, and then we'll actually get to hear how this beast sounds. But until then, we'll be back. And just like that, we're back. So got a good night's sleep. Man, I feel so much better. I was just completely wiped out yesterday. So this North Carolina heat is no joke, but I've been dying all day to hear how it sounds. So we're going to go ahead and give it a cold start. And I did want to remind you, whenever you install a new exhaust, although it probably doesn't necessarily matter so much for stainless steel exhaust like what this is, but titanium, it definitely matters. But anytime you're working with the exhaust and you're getting your grubby fingerprints all over there, all those oils and stuff from your skin, you don't want it to burn into the exhaust. So I've actually wiped down the system. I just took some brake cleaner, sprayed the exhaust off so that we don't have to worry about any fingerprints being burned in there. But I'm gonna go ahead and fired it up, and hopefully we wake the dead. That's the goal. Well, the car is definitely loud, but honestly, from the Mack exhaust to this SLP, there's not much of a jump. Not as much as I was expecting. So kind of, I guess the bar is set with Paul's Bullitt. Like, that thing is obnoxiously loud and I love it. And that's kind of what I want for this car, and I don't really know how to achieve it. So I really thought the SLP would do it, but I mean, if I rate the loudness level of the Mack exhaust as like a 6, this one might be like a 7.5. So I mean, like, it woke it up a little bit, and I feel like I can hear that chop a little more in the idle, but I don't know. We'll see once the actual motor gets warm, and then we can rev it some. But yeah, not super duper impressed so far. okay, I might have actually discounted these mufflers a little too quickly. So idle was just a little bit louder, but when you actually get down on the road, and especially anything above like 2,500 or 3,000 RPM, this thing screams. So I'm actually impressed now. So initial impressions, like just the cold start, again, I couldn't really hear it from inside the car, so I don't know if like that initial grumble to life was a lot louder than it was, but by the time I kind of let it simmer down and get out of the car and listen to it myself, like it just wasn't, it didn't seem, it was just a marginal difference to me versus the Mac. But yeah, getting it on the road, big difference. So yes, now I'm ecstatic. This is kind of what the sound I was looking for. So I just don't know why it's so quiet and like the low RPMs. Like I feel like it would just be screaming all the time, but I guess it just needs that exhaust flowing to really liven up the sound. But I'm a happy camper at this point, so the higher I go, the louder it gets. I'm gonna go test drive some more, and then I did just pull over, just want to make sure that everything is still bolted down, I didn't lose any parts, nothing's coming separated, so all seems good. So I'm gonna put a few more miles on it, and then we'll get back to the Chaos Garage and catch up with you all. Made it back to the Chaos Garage after a successful test drive. So we didn't lose any parts. Everything seems tight still. I mean, it's hot, so I can't really get down there and feel it, but just from a visual perspective, everything looks like it's still connected. So in about 100 miles or so, I'll just kind of go over and just double check everything's still tight. Just put a wrench on there, crank on it, just so that way I have the peace of mind that it's not going anywhere, because just from vibrations and everything like that, things can, all it is just these band clamps holding everything together. So I learned a lesson today though, that don't be so quick to judge. Because when I first heard this car start up, like I said, I mean, originally I was a little bit bummed out, because I just thought, like, I just anticipated more in my head. But then once we actually got driving on the road, man, I'm in love. So it's nice enough to where you can control it a little bit. So, you know, like, it's not an instant cop magnet. So obviously if you're hammering on it, higher RPMs, you're gonna draw attention. But if you just wanna cruise around and everything, like, there's not really that much drone, so you can have a conversation with people. To me, it's perfect. So it's just, it'll scream when I want it to, and then I can also put it in chill mode, because I road trip this car a lot. So if it were just constantly droning, it would give me a headache and just drive me nuts. So don't have to worry about that. But yeah, I was way too quick to judge, because I really thought from that first startup, I was like, it's louder, don't get me wrong, but it's just not what I had pictured. You have to let me know your thoughts below. Should I have stuck with the Mac, or is the SLP the way to go? But I appreciate everybody watching. If you haven't already, make sure you smash that subscribe button. We'll catch y'all in the next one.